So I just got the completely devastating news that the factory that I've been working with for the last year to make my bags here in Tuscany is closing. And while I'm personally devastated and don't know what this means for Sieme, I know I'll figure out a way to go on. This is actually a huge problem right now in Tuscany. There are hundreds of factories closing, and if you're outside of Italy, and especially this region, you probably don't know about it. Nobody in the fashion publications is talking about it, so I'm going to. I might end up making this a whole series because it spans 50 years of why we got into this mess, but let's just start. So this is all over the local publications. This is Firenze Today, like a local newspaper, but basically this year alone, over 200 factories are at risk of closing just in the leather goods sector, and 4,000 people out of work. This is because overall, the leather goods production industry is way down. There was an absolute boom. I'm gonna argue there's been a boom for like 30 years that has led us to billion-dollar luxury brands. Like, the idea of a billion-dollar brand is insane, but here we are. But just in the last 2023 and 2024, overall, the entire sector is down 9%, but if you break it down by categories, like shoes in the region are down 25%, and if you break it down further by a lot of brands, Gucci announced this quarter that they're down 75%, and like brands like Gucci are huge producers in the region. This region is made up of historically independent contractors, family-owned factories. 75 or more percent of factories in this region are like 15 people or less, so very much family-owned factories that produce on contract for major brands. Over time, that has become centralized. Brands want to control everything. They're buying out factories and basically internalizing all of their production and specializing all of their production. Again, I'm going to keep this like high level, and then maybe we'll break that down in another video, but let me continue. Okay, so what does it mean when a brand like Gucci is down 75% year over year? Well, let's say that factory last year received a 10,000 piece order in 3 months. I've actually heard this, like this year they received 60 pieces. That's a personal anecdotal story that a factory told me. The same goes for another factory that told me around like 10,000, 20,000 pieces last year, 2,500 this year. Now, brands put the onus on the factories that they don't own to ramp up for the production that they give. So that means the factories have to invest in more machines, more people, more infrastructure so that they can meet these orders, because they want to keep these large orders, because factories need a large production brand to make sure that they can fill their production line. So when factories like this close, it means that it is devastating for independent and emerging brands as well, because we rely on something called the buchi, or the holes in these factory production calendars when these factories have downtime from their major orders. We rely on those holes to produce our goods, because our goods are not keeping the lights on in these factories. They are not keeping the production lines busy, but they are a great added bonus. It's really hard as an independent brand to find these factories. They kind of have to like you, believe in your brand, believe in your vision, believe in your design aesthetic, and believe in you in order to agree to take on your production, because it's really just like icing on the cake for them. It's a little bit of extra money. They might not even make that much money, but it at least like fills the holes in the production calendar. Usually they're doing like their minimum order pieces, and it's just a lot of headache for the actual money that they would make. So it's more about like a personal relationship and just wanting to support emerging talent in the region. But if all the factories become centralized and owned by the big brands, then there'll be nobody to produce for these emerging brands. And eventually we're going to have a landscape where you either have like mega off-price and licensed brands at TJ Maxx and mega luxury brands, and literally nobody in between that's doing anything interesting or new, especially in terms of like sustainability, circularity, zero waste, and kind of coming up with new models and new ideas. Because let's face it, without factories, we can't scale. I think factories get such a bad rap in fashion, and it's just like they exploit people, blah, blah, blah. And if you take nothing away from this, I hope that you take away that Factories get squeezed from all directions, and they are just trying to stay in business 9 times out of 10. Most of the squeezing is coming from the mega brands, and so that's really more where our attention needs to be focused. We need to be holding brands accountable to creating a more equitable relationship and symbiotic relationship with their production partners. And I think this is getting long. So I'm going to do another video on how we've gotten here to this point, because there used to be a symbiotic relationship 50 years ago. And industrialization and centralization of profits has made it so that all of the profits go to the brands. The brands reap all the benefits, and the factories get squeezed on every end until they end up closing. So if you have any questions about how we got here specifically, drop them in the comments and I'll continue to address this. I think I'm going to make this a series because I just really don't see anybody talking about this. And it's an absolute crisis. In the last 2 years, 396 factories just in this region alone. I didn't even know we had 396 factories. Like, I did, but the numbers are just wild. It's an absolute crisis. Support your boutiques and your emerging brands and your independent designers, even if it's not me, because that will directly support family-owned and independent factories.